Hey guys, what up? It's Jack and welcome back to another video. So I want to start this commentary by asking you two questions. Number one, are you a Call of Duty refugee? And number two, do you trust Activision / Call of Duty? And that is the basis of this commentary. So basically at this point right now with XDefiant, the developers of XDefiant, as well as just the game itself and everything else, they only have one shot at this. So what exactly am I talking about? You probably understand by now, especially with those two questions that I asked you. And that is gaining, well, not just gaining the trust of the fan base, but also to keep it. Because at this point, it's pretty safe to assume that even the people that, create content for Call of Duty or, play Call of Duty, whatever it is, whether they're a casual, whether they're a pro or whatnot. I mean, if they have a certain level of knowledge about the developers and the publisher and all that kind of stuff, and basically have a certain level of understanding of how Call of Duty works every year and where the priorities of the game truly lie and stuff like that, well, I think it's safe to assume that most people will probably not trust Activision or anything like that, unless you're a shareholder. If you're a shareholder, then you're probably going to trust Activision to make you a profit, because ultimately that's what it's all about, right? I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of content creators, especially the big ones, basically put some trust into Activision in that aspect. But we're not talking about that aspect specifically, being a shareholder or whatnot. We're talking about specifically, just having trust about the game, right? In terms of them making the right Call of Duty, listening to the community and all that kind of stuff. You understand what I'm saying? So, and over the last handful of years or whatnot, it's been business as usual, right? Call of Duty isn't what it used to be anymore. The majority of the attention goes to Warzone. And of course, I recently realized that thanks to other content creators out there, that like over 60% of the player base, if not 70, plays on mobile, which coincidentally just happens to be the more arcadey version of the Call of Duties that we've been getting recently. Like COD Mobile is basically like COD Online, but made for mobile. And as a matter of fact, actually, because it runs on because they rely on microtransactions and shit like that, beyond just the player base, but because of the microtransactions and stuff like that, I wouldn't be surprised if there was an engagement optimization matchmaking system for there as well. I wouldn't be surprised, or some sort of algorithm that messes with that to a certain degree, right? So you guys understand, it's obviously a business first and foremost. I mean, that's the same for every single game out there. I totally understand that. But at the same time, I believe, from an integrity standpoint, I believe that there needs to be a certain level of trust between the consumer, us, and the developers, as well as the publishers. But obviously, more the developers than anything else. But obviously, like I mentioned before, and obviously in other videos, if the publisher says no to something, no matter what the developers say, it's basically it's just not going to happen. Just like in like if you were to approach your boss at work with a great idea, right? And it could be the greatest idea, it could give them profits and stuff like that, but for whatever reason the boss just doesn't want it to happen, and they say no, there's really nothing you could do about it, because it's their call on whether or not it happens or not, whether it's their business or whether it's just their position or whatnot, whatever it is. It could be the greatest idea in the world, but if for whatever reason they say no, then it just isn't going to happen. I know it's a tough pill to swallow, but that's basically how it works. And it's no different with the Call of Duty scene. It's no different with the gaming scene. So XDefiant really does have a one-time shot at this, right? More than anything else. Like, ultimately, like, even if the game has a rougher launch, it's not going to be as impactful, in my opinion. It's not going to be as impactful as losing, your integrity, or, losing the trust of the community, so to speak, right? That is the biggest thing right there, is that XDefiant and the developers and the publishers need to keep their integrity. Now, I know that, and of course, some of you that know about Ubisoft more than anything else, some of you guys have told me through the comment section and stuff like that, that you don't trust Ubisoft's worth of crap because of their track record and stuff like that. Again, totally understand, and I'm actually with you on that. Like, I understand where you're coming from, and I understand why you feel the way you do. I get it. And especially if you've also been on the Call of Duty side of things, it's very understandable as to why you would view things from a certain viewpoint, because that's all you've seen, right? It's all you've seen. It's all you've come to realize. You put all the pieces together, and I totally understand. And it's really hard to look at Call of Duty or any gaming franchise that is of similar stature, especially ones that have been, especially for publishers that have been questionable in the past. It's kind of hard to look at it from the glass is half full, so to speak, right? It's hard to look at it from a positive standpoint, especially since you've seen negativity and you're able to see the BS and you're like, screw this, But ultimately, here's the facts. XDefiant has yet to come out, right? Mark Rubin and his crew have yet to release their game in full release. And at the same time, it's still a question mark in terms of what's going to happen, right? I mean, we want the game to launch as smoothly as possible, right? That's obviously a priority that should be in the forefront. But something that kind of goes along with that is just as important, if not more important, is the fact that the integrity of the game needs to remain intact, right? No matter what happens, the integrity of the game needs to remain intact, especially if the game becomes financially successful, which I hope it does. Because let me tell you, if the integrity is kept throughout the entire life cycle and stuff like that, or even, let's say the game releases and I don't see any red flags or anything like that, I'm going to support the game. Like I will, for the first time ever, I'll buy the damn battle pass, and I'll encourage others to do so to a certain extent, to basically, if they can, to encourage players to support that game, right? Because it obviously gives them feedback and the publisher feedback, like, hey, you guys are doing the right thing, so therefore we're going to reward you for it. There you go. We're going to buy your battle pass, or we're going to tell people about your game, right? We're going to spread the word. We're going to say, hey, give this game a try. It's free to play, blah, blah, blah. And player count does make a difference in terms of the game's financial success as well. It's not just the microtransactions. But you guys get the point here. If integrity is lost, then everything is lost, right? I mean, look at some of the other franchises out there that started off strong and then eventually ended up losing their integrity, right? And look at what happened to those franchises today. Now, granted, some of those franchises are juggernauts, and it's a lot harder to impact those juggernauts because of the brand name, because of what they've implemented as well, and things like that. It's difficult. It really is difficult because, again, a lot of the peoples are not aware. A lot of the people, the majority of the people that play to this day, despite the fact that gaming's become more popular and social media's become more popular, YouTube and all that kind of stuff, despite all that, the majority of the players don't know what we know, right? They don't know this kind of stuff. They just know the brand name, they're loyal to that brand name, and they keep going for it, right? Just no different than, it's no different than being loyal to your local, sports team or whatnot, no matter how good or they are or not. You're just loyal because, for whatever reason that you're loyal. I don't know if that was a good analogy or not, because it's a little bit different when it comes to that, because it's, it's your local sports team. No matter how good or bad they are, you support them because you want them to reach the promised land, and kind of have a Hoosiers story, so to speak, and stuff like that. That's great. So maybe perhaps that analogy wasn't so good, but you guys get the point. A lot of people just like the brand, no matter what. They'll be loyal to the brand, no matter what. And unfortunately, a lot of people just don't know any better as well. And that is exactly what Activision, and even to a certain extent, people that promote the game, in one way or another, that's how they make their bread. Believe it or not, that's how it works. But with XDefiant here, we have a chance. This is a clean slate at this point. XDefiant has a clean slate, and they need to keep that slate as clean as possible throughout the life cycle of the game. Not just the launch, but we're talking the entirety of however long the game lasts. And we want the game to last. We want the game to be supported. I mean, we want there to be a turnaround in the community in order for people and publishers to see, like, look at this little game XDefiant. It started out as such, and look, it's grown into this massive game, and people love it. And oh, really? How did it do that? Well, this is what the developers are doing. There's communication, integrity, look at the gameplay, look at the updates and stuff like that. There's no skill-based matchmaking in there. There's no EOMM in there, which is the bigger of two evils, by the way, engagement optimization matchmaking. And by the way, no matter how good Treyarch's next game is going to be, which a lot of people are just waiting for, right? A lot of Call of Duty players are waiting for Treyarch's game, right? And they're hoping that the next game that comes out is going to, keep them at bay until keep them satisfied until Treyarch's game comes out. Listen, man, engagement optimization matchmaking is not going anywhere. So as long as that remains a fact, they can ruin the experience. I mean, think about your favorite Call of Duty game that you've had in the past, right? That didn't have engagement optimization matchmaking, obviously, right? So all of a sudden you throw the engagement optimization matchmaking in there, which is part of the reason why the lobbies disband and all the other stuff. And I mean, it's going to ruin your experience, man. No matter how good a pizza is, right? Here comes my food analogy again, right? Let's say you make a great great piece of, like the greatest pizza ever, right? And that pizza all of a sudden falls, slips through the maker's hands, and it falls into a big pile of shit, right? Are you going to eat that pizza? No, of course not. So that's basically what it is. Right now, Call of Duty players are basically, picking up that pizza from the floor, or from that pile of crap, and they're still eating it anyway. Because again, they don't know any better. It is what it is. And the, and the company keeps getting away with it or whatnot. So it is what it is, So ultimately, at this point in time, we gotta keep our heads in the right place, and basically, remember the fact that XDefiant only has one shot at this, and hopefully they make the most of it, and hopefully the integrity remains throughout. And I have faith that they do. Like being optimistic about this, I have faith that they do. Could things ultimately change directions? Yes, they can. But I am going to keep the faith and say, hey, you know what? So far, they haven't given us a reason to not trust them, right? The only thing that people are being very skeptical about is the fact that it's Ubisoft, and because of things that have happened in the past, right? We might forgive, maybe, but we sure as hell don't forget, right? So that is something that's keeping people cautiously optimistic, and yet some people are just very skeptical, and they're like, screw it, it's Ubisoft. No, I'm never going to trust them again. Kind of like Activision. There's a lot of Call of Duty refugees like myself that are basically saying, no, I'm never trusting Activision again. The only way that I would ever even consider, looking into, change in terms of Call of Duty is if Microsoft acquires them. But even with that, Microsoft is still a business, right? So they still want to maximize profits and return on investment as much as possible, right? So part of me still thinks that even if Microsoft were to win and they were in control of Call of Duty, that I don't think the engagement optimization matchmaking is going anywhere. But if they do remove it and things do end up improving, and the fan base says, yeah, it doesn't seem to be in there and all that kind of stuff, well, then okay, then we can look at Call of Duty again and say, hey, you know what? They're redeeming themselves. But that is still very unlikely to happen. Just being real. I mean, we all hope it does, right? But no. So especially if you're a Call of Duty refugee like myself. But anyway, that's going to conclude this commentary, guys. So let's continue to support XDefiant for those of us that are into that sort of thing. We all have high hopes for a game. We all hope the game turns out as good as that as hope as the potential is concerned. And to the devs, if there happens to be anybody watching, which I doubt, but I'm just saying, if there happens to be anybody watching that's on the dev team or has access to the dev team, it's like, please remember, you guys only have one shot at this. And I hope that you guys keep your integrity, and I hope that the transparency, the support, and listening to the fan base and everything like that continues, because so far you guys have been nailing it out of the park, and you've been setting the example in something that could hopefully within time change the gaming scene for the better, right? Because there's a lot of games out there, both popular and non-popular, financially successful and non-financially successful, that are literally neglecting their fan base, right? Despite the fact that the fan base has been requesting this, and that, and none of those requests are being made. And on top of that, there's being a lot of negligence going on. Like, they're not listening to you. So I hope you guys don't take that route. Continue doing what you're doing, and eventually you guys will succeed and will get to where you want to be and beyond. And the community will support you and praise you for it. So, but that's all I got to say, guys. Thank you very much for listening and or watching. And I hope you guys have a great weekend and enjoy the rest of your day. I'll catch you guys on the next one.